Okay, guys. Happy Easter weekend. It is a Saturday evening. Just got home from another lovely day out on the ranch all day. Even with all of our quarantine, not being able to go anywhere and social distancing, it's and we'll still have to be taken care of. So, still hugely taking up a ridiculous amount of time. Almost working as much as I did working both jobs. Having to work at the ranch as much as well. But anywho. So please forgive the look. Again, been on the ranch all day. So the dogs, they are passed out on their beds. Hopefully they will be quiet for our session. So, I hope everyone is faring well. I hope everyone has had a great week. I hope everyone is having a great Easter weekend. The weather has been beautiful. It was supposed to, spoiler alert, rain today. Didn't rain whatsoever freaking ever. At least where I was. Maybe y'all got some rain. But anywho, so what we're going to hit today, again, tonight, it's actually, I'm filming this on Saturday evening-ish, 7 o'clock or so, still light up. Anyway, so, you do have, everyone is doing very, very well. I've been, got a few Skype messaging conferences. Don't forget that is always an avenue for you if you do so need it. If you will use Skype, lots of emails, everyone seems to be handling things okay so far. Guess what, guys? We technically only have like 3 weeks until finals, as crazy as that sounds. This has been like the weirdest semester ever, right? But this upcoming week, you do have your third exam, which Monday, tonight is Saturday, Monday, I will upload for you on Canvas. I'm not going to worry about uploading it on Easter and having that, y'all worry about that on Easter. Who wants to do that, right? There's already no Easter Bunny coming to our houses or our churches because everything is canceled. So, not going to make you do or worry about that. The test will be uploaded Monday. Tonight I'll get all of Chapter 11, both lectures for Chapter 11 up. As well as tomorrow I will record and upload Chapter 13. I will get your test uploaded for you on Monday, which will be the 14th. And then you'll have all week to take Test 3. And then we'll literally have freaking 2 weeks until finals. It's crazy. It's absolutely craziness. But, anywho, as always, feel free to holler at me, yell at me with any questions, concerns, anything of that magnitude. Feel free to comment and tell me how goofy I look. If they want a freaking sleep shirt and pajama bottoms already, I'm like, I am in for the night. Crashing. You were fine. Anywho, let us commence. Let us get rolling into Chapter 11. Unless you want to teach about D. So, anywho, let's pick up with Chapter 11. So, leaving off with Chapter 9, Part 2. I know, you're fine. Leaving off with Chapter 9, Part 2. Monroe served 2 terms. We had Jefferson, Madison, we had Monroe, again, Adams. Quit is up for you on Canvas. It was the end of that generation, though. It was the end of that generation that was so brilliant that we hit both before, during the regular semester, and after, in this new norm, this generation that declared independence, who was inspired by the Enlightenment. Go all the way back to Chapter 6, when we had been Franklin and Adams and Jefferson and Washington, all be inspired by the Enlightenment. And we saw the change. We saw us rebel from Britain. We saw the revolution. We saw the forming of our country. The settling of a republic. We saw our first president, our cabinet being filled. We saw Washington, from Washington to Monroe, and all these adventures. The Lewis and Clark expedition, the War of 1812. Hamilton's famous duel. All that is over. That generation has passed, guys. We are in the mid-1800s, and this country is going in a new, solid, freaking direction. Throwing that out there. We're growing. We're thriving. We're changing. It's what you want your children to do, right? It's what you want the next generation to do. You want your country to continue to grow and thrive and change and move forward. And we are, not just politically, as we form new political parties. The Republicans and your now Democrats have come to light. The original Federalists have, in fact, died out by this point. We'll never have another Federalist president. We're fixing to have our first Democratic president, actually. But not only are we changing and are we growing economically, we're growing culturally, we're growing politically, we're growing socially too, we're growing behaviorally. Even though we're American, duh, right? We're very American, we're very independent, very set in our ways. It's all been political. Dogs are being silly, sorry. It's all been political. And it's kind of funny, even while we politically we're American, we have our own rules, sets, laws, blah, blah, blah. Socially, we've still been holding on to a lot of European cultural norms. We've still been very European in the way we interact with each other. The way we, our cultures kind of embrace, the way that we socially interact with each other. Example, up until this point, it was very still European custom in the 1800s when you would come across someone, instead of, shaking hands or, doing the elbow bump or whatever, with our coronavirus going on, air high five. In the 1800s, if you came across somebody, men would always bow to each other. If a man and woman came into contact, friends, instead of saying hi, giving a hug, high five, what's up, women would curtsy, men would doff their hats to women, men would bow to each other. We were still doing that over here. That is still how we were interacting with each other, just a little, bow. And women were curtsying. Not anymore. It's when we start to come up with our own American type of social and cultural norms, our own identities, the whole concept of shaking someone's hand or giving a hug instead of doffing your hat or bowing when you come into contact with somebody. You saw that in the John Adams miniseries. Go back to beginning of chapter 7. We watched that clip from John Adams where, when Washington was appointed commander-in-chief, general of the Continental Army. Right? And he told John Adams, I don't feel myself equal to the task. And Adams said, well, your army awaits you at Cambridge, sir, and I will meet you there on my behalf. And what do they do when they leave? They both bow to each other slightly. We were still doing that. That was still very, very British. So we see the whole shifting of cultural norms. Hugs, handshakes, high fives, friggin' elbow bumps, whatever the case may be. We also see a difference in terms of in European settings, it was very, very rude, is I guess the best term to put it. It was very disrespectful. There we go. That's the word my mind was looking for. Very disrespectful for someone of a lower social status to make eye contact with somebody of a higher social status. If you had a middle class citizen and an upper class, an aristocrat, come into contact with each other, the aristocrat would be making eye contact, like I am with you right now, with the middle-class citizen, and the middle-class citizen should be looking to the side, or looking down, or, just, talking, but not really meeting them in the eye, because they were not on the same level. There was an inferiority issue there. So, like, in class, if we were in class, to be like, right now, everyone should be off their phones, right? Can't keep you from doing that now. I'm sure you love it. Just kidding. But I'm expecting all of you to look me in the eye. If I'm looking at you for over an hour, and about an hour twice a week, I'm wanting to see the whites of your eyes. I'm wanting to see you're paying attention. You're paying attention to me. You're looking at me. I want you making eye contact with me, right? Back in the 1800s, I've been very rude. I'd be talking to you, and you guys would be looking at my PowerPoint slide, hopefully taking notes, or you'd be looking at the wall, or you'd be looking at your fingers. You would not be meeting. I know. A dog's looking at me in the eye. See? Cultural standards. You would not be meeting me in the eye. So those type of changes, long story short, are these 7 o'clock at night, still drinking coffee. Just saying. Texas pecan, very good, by the way. We're making those type of changes. So we're kind of being transformed. The last pieces of independence, the last pieces of our own true identities are being formed as this new generation, these younger children kind of grow up and are forming this new cultural identity as Americans. And you see a lot of that in the Democratic Party, this new, young, hip party, per se, that's come up in that stead. And one of the biggest pushers, by the way, which is why he was kind of a household name. Shadow, what are you doing? That is my painting station back there. I paint, by the way. Don't drink that nasty paint water. Don't drink that nasty paint water. I was painting this morning, or last night. What is today? Saturday. Anyway, don't drink that nasty paint water. This is live time, prime time, people. Hang on. Shadow. Get down. Ruby, don't help. You can be up there, just don't drink this. That is nasty. You got oil paint water. Sweetheart, it's bad for you. Did you miss me? Whoa, I spilled my coffee. Did you miss me? Okay, where was I? So, this new Democratic Party, one of the biggest pushers of this new Democratic way of interacting with each other, this new Democratic way of behaving. This isn't only that, but this brand new Democratic political party, one of the biggest pushers of it was Andrew Jackson, who is known for being a war hero, right? He's known for being the hero of the War of 1812, which you've all read about by this point, hopefully, in your books, because you will need to for your exam. But very much the biggest pusher of this new Democratic Party, Democratic politics, Democratic beliefs, and this new Democratic social way of life. He was a poster child for pushing that, right? And the War of 1812, specifically the Battle of New Orleans, made him famous. Hands down, no-brainer. But once he is a household name, everybody really gets to know his name because of him being the biggest proponent of pushing this politically. Served in Congress, obviously. Now, he is one of the most inexperienced congressmen. Been around for a minute. Not long. Nobody really knows his name. Andrew Jackson is known across this country as being a war hero. But, long story short, he is serving in Congress. He has resigned from the military. He's serving in Congress. He's pushing this new democratic way of life on people, which is a good thing. And so he's very popular, but very inexperienced. Hence come the point when James Monroe has also now served 2 terms in Congress. In Congress, 2 terms as president, and he is ready to step down from office. Stepping down in office, totally joining the Congress. He's ready to step down from office. But when Jefferson stepped down, Jefferson had Madison to endorse, and endorse him hard, right? Madison has, when he stepped down after 2 terms, he endorsed Monroe, right? Monroe is stepping down. He really didn't have anybody in mind specifically to replace him, which leaves the door wide open for candidates to pop their name in the race, right? Throw their their name in the hat, their hat in the race. He was like, I don't have anybody specifically in mind, but he goes, I've got a lot of names that I think would be a very good choice to replace me. I just don't have a favorite. So with no real candidate that the president is pushing, again, it leaves the door wide open. So all of these people, I don't want to miss any of or forget any of their names. Here we go. So there will be 5 people, by the way, 5 people who originally will throw their name in the hat as a presidential candidate. You will have Andrew Jackson, who again is the politically least experienced. Yes, he does have congressional experience, but of everybody else who's, the other 4, he is the rookie, right? He's known, his claim to fame is being a war hero, not being a politician. So you've got Andrew Jackson, who's known for the Battle of New Orleans. You've got Henry Clay, who's been around for a good minute, served in Congress for a long time, and is currently the Speaker of the House of Representatives. You've got William Crawford, who was a war hawk, also fought in the War of 1812, but has gone on to be Secretary of Treasury. You've got John C. Calhoun, who was also a war hawk and fought in the War of 1812, has gone on to be Secretary of War. And then you've got John Quincy Adams, the son of John Adams, who is currently Secretary of State. So you've got 5 men, all technically with political experience, right? Jackson is the rookie, because you have Jackson in there, who literally, his campaign slogan is war hero. Then you've got the Speaker of the House of Representatives, who is just, who is one of the highest positions that there can be in Congress. And you got 3 men in the presidential cabinet, and then you've got a guy known for winning a battle. It's a melting pot. Again, 4 of them incredibly qualified. 1 with some experience and more beloved than qualified, right? So, but of the 5, it'll come down to 2. You only have 2 presidential candidates, right? So, of those 5, it'll whittle down to 2. And as you're looking at this list and usually taking notes over this list, I ask you, of this 5, John C. Calhoun, William Crawford, Andrew Jackson, Henry Clay, John Quincy Adams, who do you think the top 2 were? Who did the 2 candidates boil down to? But since I can't ask you that in real time, I will go ahead and spoiler alert you guys. It was John Quincy Adams. Makes complete sense. Very experienced, served in Congress, now the Secretary of State, son of a former president. And Andrew Jackson. Got a few years of political experience in there, but mostly military man. All 3 men, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the other 2 men in the presidential cabinet, did have a shot. It's kind of interesting, because Jackson is so popular. John Quincy Adams absolutely makes sense. The other was just so popular, because his claim to fame was about New Orleans, but then he's just been a household name out there politically. It was, boosting the Democratic Party. He's been all over the press. He's all over the news. He's spreading and taking it upon his shoulders to spread this new democratic way of life. So, he's very popular. He's a celebrity. So it comes down to those 2, right? Long story short, we usually go into the process of this a little bit more in class, but long story short, the ballots come out, the ballots come in, the votes are counted, and pretty much between the 2, it is a dead tie. 1 incredibly experienced, the other not so much. Dead freaking tie, right? Do I have my numbers? I'm pretty sure I have my numbers. I know I do. Yeah, Jackson wins 44% of the popular vote and the most electoral votes, but she fell short by a large majority in the Electoral College. So, long story short, when the numbers all come in, it's pretty, there's no clear winner. It's a divided field. Nobody's on top. But that's okay, because we know how to handle the situation. It happened way back in 1800, right? So, last time this happened between Burr and Jefferson, right? Jefferson's first term. The decision falls to the House of Representatives, and the House has a speaker that has some sway, right? Back in 1800s, when this fell to the House for the first time, the Speaker of the House was Henry Clay. Excuse me, good Lord. The Speaker of the House was Alexander Hamilton, who swayed the House against Burr in favor of Thomas Jefferson, right? Now again, so we saw the Speaker have control of the House, right? The Speaker was the neck. Got the House to sway in favor, send their nod towards Jefferson. Well, in 1824, the Speaker of the House is Henry Clay. Very well versed in what happened 24 years ago. Knows that if he plays his cards right, he's got a lot of pull. I have a little piece of hair, it's driving me crazy. So anyway. Such a girl thing, right? I know. Henry Clay knows how it worked for Alexander Hamilton. He knows what happened the last time, and he knows if he plays his cards right, he can go down that same road. So, now again, let's be very, very clear. Jackson was more popular, sure. Across the board, on paper, John Quincy Adams should have won. Let's be quite honest. This is a political election for President of the United States. John Quincy Adams should have won, but he hasn't. It's a tie. But, especially in present time, in 1824, between these 2 men, it's a done no-brainer. Adams should absolutely win this vote. I mean, who in the God's name is going to put the most inexperienced person ever? Not really, you get the point. Very inexperienced politician into President of the United States over somebody who grew up in the dang freaking, federal, I wasn't going to say White House, not quite yet. Grew up 8 years old. John Quincy Adams' life was devoted to politics. I mean, he's just the clearest shot on paper. And, it's a done no-brainer. So, Clay obviously knows it'd be very, very easy to sway the House in favor of John Quincy Adams. But he wants to reap some reward from this as well, right? So he's going to go to John Quincy Adams and say, look, we both know you should have had this thing in the bag. This is ridiculous that you didn't. I can easily convince the House to pick you. But if I sway the House in your favor, if I scratch your back and I make sure the House picks you, Well, then it's only fair that you scratch mine, right? I hand you the presidency now. You name me your your Secretary of State. Why does he want to be Secretary of State? Because the last 3 presidents to this point had all been Secretary of State. Thomas Jefferson, Secretary of State under good God. Secretary of State under George Washington. Thomas Jefferson was. And during that first, for about 5 years. Till he resigns. Hi. So Thomas Jefferson, Secretary of State under Washington. Hello. James Madison, Secretary of State under both John Adams, and then also Secretary of State under Jefferson's first term when Aaron Burr was forced to be Vice President. James Monroe had been Secretary of State for Jefferson's second term. So long story short, all 3 prior presidents had been Secretary of State. John Quincy Adams, Secretary of State for James Monroe. So long story short, Secretary of State is just the perfect stepping stone. Oh, sorry, baby. So the perfect stepping stone to assume the presidency. So I'll hand you the presidency now while you put me in that perfect stepping stone to be president when you're finished, right? I scratch your back, you scratch mine. And of course, Adams is like, if you can get the job done, done, right? So this deal becomes known as the corrupt bargain between Henry Clay and John Quincy Adams, ensuring Adams the presidency with Clay becoming Secretary of State. Becomes known as the corrupt bargain of 1824. And it's the corrupt bargain because it was a sneaky, under-the-table type of deal, right? But one of the two, talk about it. Hi, honey. One of the two just absolutely can't keep their dang trap shut over it. Because somehow news of this deal got back to Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson hears that this piece of hair is going to drive me crazy. I might have to go put it in a clip. I swear. Or hairspray, one of the two. Anyway. I know, it's a girl thing. I get it. So most likely it was Henry Clay who started squawking his lips and blah, 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 right? Who starts talking on this deal, told someone of this deal. Because it's like what happens. John Quincy Adams gets the presidency, Henry Clay knows about it, and this news gets back to Jackson, who's like, oh, hell to the freaking no, right? You've got to be kidding me. And when news comes out that this deal really did happen, this was between the two. Andrew Jackson is going to be out there now for 4 years seeking revenge, right? Because he believes that Henry Clay cost him the election. So for the next 4 years, he's out there bashing Henry Clay throughout the press. To anybody who will listen, he is out there bashing the president. I mean, every day for 4 years, that is the goal of his life. Is to bash and trash the president, bash and trash Henry Clay, do what he needs to do to get the country against the president so that he can have the best shot of getting elected in the next election, right? I mean, he's smart. He's playing his cards right. And here's the deal, people. This is important. This is actually your important note. John Quincy Adams was not a bad president. He was actually quite a quirky president with some quirky traits. Prime example, John Quincy Adams was the first president to really establish the whole precedent of skinny dipping. John Quincy Adams loved to go skinny dipping in the Potomac River in the winter. Why not, right? Why not? So skinny dipping in the middle of winter in D.C. Oh my God. And a populated river. People walk, it's like the Trinity in Fort Worth, right? People walk and bike and blah, blah, blah. Walk the dogs down. So he was seen. Not only that, every president has had a presidential pet. Every president has had a presidential pet ant. There we go. Up until this point, it's been very agricultural. Horses, sheep, cows. Once someone has a bird, don't call me right now, it'll come to me in a minute. Very agricultural, not dogs and cats. That was not normal yet. People didn't have cats and dogs a lot as domestic pets. Family pets per se. They had them, but they were, for security and protection, blah, blah, blah. So, in a day and age where most presidential pets are horses, cows, sheep, dogs, John Quincy Adams had a presidential pet alligator. True story. That he kept in the bathtub at the White House. That's a cool president, right? Only president to ever do so. But, so there's some quirky traits about him. Fun facts about him. Very qualified. John Quincy Adams' life is just fascinating. He's a fascinating person to research. And this is very important again, he was a good president. You won't find anybody out there who claims he is a bad president. He was good. He just wasn't great. And that's where the problem falls in, right? That's where the problem kicks in. Is he's got someone out there bashing and trashing his reputation and his character and his morals and his, in Jackson's words, lackluster presidency across his country. And at the end of 4 years, Adams is not able to step up and say, yeah, okay, Jackson's been saying all this for the last 4 years, but look at what I've done for the country. Look at how the country is run. Look at how successful I have made it. Look at how well our economy is functioning. He didn't end a war like Madison did. He didn't create any air of good feelings like Monroe. He didn't, which was just sensational in that day and age, by the way. May not be the bee's knees for you today, but trust me, back then it was unheard of. No, and it would be today. Political parties all working together. Democrats and Republicans holding hands and singing Kumbaya. Yeah, okay. Monroe made it happen. So he didn't, but, Adams didn't do that. Adams didn't end, see this country through a war the way Madison did. Adams didn't double the size of our country the way Jackson did. So on and so forth. He was good. He was good. And there's nothing wrong with being just good. There's not one damn thing wrong with being a good president. He's just not great. So he doesn't have this really strong platform to defend himself, long story short, 4 years later, against all, Jackson's attacks and Jackson's badgering and all of these things that Jackson's been working on against him. He just doesn't have a strong enough platform for people not to care about what Jackson is saying. So Adams will basically lower himself. Adams will sink to Jackson's level. And it'll be in start just to bash and trash Jackson back. Because that's all he can do. He doesn't have any strong platform of look what I've done for our country. Not really. Things have been fine. That's okay. Except if you got someone out there against you like Jackson. So Adams gets very, very petty. Attacks Jackson's inexperience, which is fair. And attacks Jackson's morality, which is a cheap shot. Claims he cheated on his wife, Rachel, all the time. Was very unfaithful and immoral. Do you want to elect an immoral man into office? So on and so forth. Yada, yada, yada. It gets pretty petty. It gets pretty cheap. It gets pretty, childish, let's say. Kind of like our last election we had 3 years ago, right? 4 years ago at this point. It was not professionally done. But, so basically it's going to come down on popularity. Basically it's going to come down to their followings. And Jackson will win in a landslide. I was looking, I know I've got my numbers here somewhere. Oh, where are my numbers? Do I not have my numbers? Maybe they are my notes. Oh well. Long story short, I have my actual numbers on here. Not that I would ask you on a test, but anywho, Jackson wins in a damn landslide. It's ridiculous. So Adams, first father and son presidential duo in history, also were only one-term presidents, each of them. John Adams served one time. John Quincy Adams served one term. Andrew Jackson is president. Adams was not wrong to question his inexperience. Was not wrong to question his naiveness at times in terms of politics. Because Andrew Jackson, guys, has gone down in the eyes of many historians I've studied over the last 17 years as either one of the best presidents in American history, because he will with the least experience maybe of all of our presidents. And I'd have to go back and research that, but he was definitely one of the least qualified, for sure. He accomplished something that no other president in history has ever done. That was sensational. He did, he was, if he had needed to, technically, he was a president in 4 years, could step up and say, yeah, so-and-so's been out there bashing me, but look at what I've done for the country, and he would have had a damn platform. He's going to do something sensational. Nobody to date has ever figured out how to do. He's also, in the eyes of many others, one of the worst presidents ever in history. And the word impeachment became a reality for the first time with this president. We were very, very close to impeaching Andrew Jackson. We were on, and I'll have to clarify when I get there. It'll come to me in a minute. Was he actually impeached? They may have actually impeached him. I will clarify that here in a minute. But he was the first president where the concept of impeachment. Why is my head spinning right now on that? Anyway, I will check that here in just a second. Because I believe they actually did impeach him, but impeachment doesn't mean that you actually leave office, per se. They were for sure on the impeachment trial. I have to make sure they actually did impeach him. Anyway, but he was the first president where impeachment became a reality. I can't believe my head's not clear on that right now. That's almost embarrassing. Anyway, it's quarantine. Quarantine is messing with me. So, he's going to do something that literally will cause him to be the first president to face impeachment, which, especially considering the morals, cultures, values of our country back then, was a ridiculous deal. No one ever thought in their lifetime that was ever going to happen. But then you have him over here on this pedestal being one of the greatest presidents of all time. So long story short, he is a conundrum of an interesting character. Now, he is known for some very memorable mistakes along the way. He is known for doing some questionable things in the first few years of his office, but most every president does, right? Most every president makes mistakes in their first few years, in their first year or two, or most have things that they've done that they're known for, oopsie daisies here and there. Not like Andrew Jackson. Every president makes mistakes. No president is perfect. But Andrew Jackson's mistakes have kind of lingered throughout time in a, very popular sense, as in everyone's probably heard of some of these things I'm fixing to tell you that Jackson did. It's kind of interesting. Andrew Jackson is the president responsible for creating this institute called the Spoils System, which hopefully we are familiar with what the Spoils System is. But you look at the presidential cabinet. You have Attorney General, Secretary of War, Secretary of State, Attorney General, Secretary of War, Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury, right? Kind of big, important offices in Congress, right? Kind of big deal per se type things. Well, oh my dear freaking Lord, it's pretty bad. Andrew Jackson, instead of looking at these cabinets and filling them with the right people for the job, researching and finding, someone who is well versed, who is literally basically has a doctorate, if not personal experience, naming him Secretary of War, the best financial brain in the freaking country, Secretary of Treasury. Just making sure you fill these positions with the right people for the job. Because they do have magnanimous responsibilities in terms of fulfilling their roles and responsibilities, making sure this country is well off and taken care of, right? Andrew Jackson decides that he is going to fill the most important institute and positions in this country with his family, with his friends, his bestest friends, and his biggest supporters who had helped him to get elected. Those who really kicked off his nickname. It was during the presidential election, by the way, of 1828, which is when he gets elected for the first time, that his nickname became born, Old Hickory. Go back to chapter 3. When he talked about the Portuguese sailing down the coast of Africa, Prince Henry the Navigator, who actually, by the way, was not a navigator, had no navigational experience, which I thought was I think is quite funny. Put out this competition to who could figure out how to get down the African coast first, and the Portuguese figured it out with their ship called the Caravel, and it was made out of hickory wood, and they wanted to use hickory wood because hickory wood was the most durable, the toughest, the most secure, the lightest but strongest wood out there. Well, during the election of 1828, when he's running against Adams, his nickname Old Hickory was born. Because this man was tough. This man was durable. This man was incredulous. This man, you could not, he had survived a war. He was known, his big claim to fame was being the hero of, the Battle of New Orleans in 1815. And he was just seen as this tough old burger that you could not knock down. You could not break. You could not bend. He was the furthest thing that would ever be known as broken. He was stout. You knock him down, he'd get straight back up, right? He was as tough as a, hickory tree. And the nickname for Andrew Jackson, due to his toughness and his durability and his, not only his physical prowess, but his mental toughness, they began to name him Old Hickory. So that's when his name Old Hickory was born and stuck. And so it's those type of people. Like his best friend, he puts into the position, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes, of Secretary of War. That'd be like Trump naming me Attorney General. I don't want to have a snowball's knowledge in hell of what I was doing, but hey, Trump and I are besties, so hey, dude, go fill that position. You're welcome. This country would tank, by the way. Fire and brimstone would come if I was Attorney General. But he names us, so again, his cousin is in the presidential cabinet. His family and his friends are him. He fills most important positions in this country. With people so wrong for the jobs, it's not even funny. And people start to flip out. They're freaking out. They say, you are going to spoil the system of this government. You are going to spoil our country. You're going to spoil everything. And so the concept of filling positions like the presidential cabinet with family and friends and supporters and those who don't belong there is known as the spoils system, because you're spoiling the position set up by this government. But Jackson has this I am going to do what I want, when I want, how I want, the rest of you be damned mentality. And so as people are attacking him for the spoil system, he's like, I don't care, y'all get over it. Which we've seen that mentality before, and it can be good and bad, right? It can be definitely good and bad. Here it's a little bit arrogant, and I see when people are saying, sir, you are doing this wrong from the out of the gate, they say, I'm going to do what I want, get over it. And it's like uh-oh, that type of scenario. He also does not get along. So he names John C. Calhoun his vice president during his first term. And due to just kind of rookie, arrogant decisions, it bitters the relationship between the two. They will fight over every state issue. They will not get along. They will, they will verbally brawl. In Congress, and not behind closed doors, privately, but in the public eye, and it's just a very childish look between him and his vice president. There is the Eaton scandal. Where do we go? There is this turbulent rumor that comes out during his first year that'll literally capture his attention and take all of his attention and capture the minds of the nation. So, again, he appointed his best friend his Secretary of War, and his best friend was a man by the name of John Eaton. Well, not long into Jackson's first term, all of a sudden this rumor starts to brew. This rumor has started and being built about the wife of the Secretary of War, John's wife, Peggy Eaton. And this rumor sweeps across. It's juicy, especially don't forget how moral and traditional and valued family matters were back in the 1800s. We're a little bit more independent-minded today, but go back to colonial days and the Founding Fathers' time and how sturdy and traditional and strong and structured family relations were. Well, what happened, this rumor, this just did not happen, right? This was as juicy as it gets back in that day and age. And this rumor, according to this rumor, Peggy Eaton had originally been married before John, which divorce happened, right? Divorce was allowed by that point. So Peggy Eaton, however, had been originally married to another man, but then Peggy Eaton had an affair on her husband with John. So her last name was Eaton back then. So Peggy had an affair on her first husband with John Eaton. Okay, still not good, right? But again, it happens. People were unfaithful back then, from time to time. But not only did Peggy have an affair with John Eaton, Peggy then left her first husband for John Eaton. And her first husband, who just cherished the ground she walked on and was devoted to her and loved her tremendously, when he finds out that his wife has had an affair and is leaving him for this other man, her first husband becomes so distraught that he hangs himself and commits suicide. And guys, in the 20s, 1830s, that was as juicy as gossip got. So, the fact that the Secretary of War's wife was this immoral, unfaithful, scandalous woman, oh my dear God, that is just pure gold, right? For those who like to gossip. So, this Eaton malaria, as it called, because it said this rumor swept through the country like a damn virus. It's called Eaton malaria. What everyone was talking about in schools and, around the dinner tables. They're talking about, all the time. And Jackson knows what it's like to be attacked. Jackson knows what it's like to be accused of something. John Quincy Adams did that a lot to him during the presidential election, right? Accusing him of cheating on his wife Rachel consistently. No real proof, concrete proof was ever found of that. So maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But still, he knows what it's like to go through something like that. And so, considering what's happening now to his best friend and his best friend's wife, he is going to put all of his attention and focus on getting to the root and the heart of this issue and figuring out who's behind this rumor. And to the American public, they kind of got the feeling like his friend's family and this personal issue came first, running the country came second. Right? It just felt to them very like Jackson was putting his own personal needs, goals, wants above what was best for the country, above taking care of us first. And it was the first president that we really had who had not truly abided by the concept of public and civic virtue. Your country comes first, you always come second. Your countrymen come first, you always come second, right? And Jackson was putting himself first and the country second, so it felt. And so it was this very kind of uneasy type of feeling going on that just didn't really rub people well. So, these type of things, oh, the best part though, best part is when he did find out who was behind the rumor, because trust me, he did. Turns out the wife behind the rumor revolving around, the woman behind the rumor circulating about the wife of his Secretary of War. The woman who had started the rumor about Peggy Eaton, the wife of the Secretary of War, was the wife of his vice president. John C. Calhoun's wife, Floride Calhoun, had started this rumor. And let's just pause there for a brief moment as we think about, women, guys, ladies, gentlemen, don't name your child Fluoride. Please, 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 don't name your child Fluoride. That is just awful. Who names their child Fluoride? Just throwing that out there. But, anywho, so the wife of the vice president had started the rumor about the wife of the Secretary of War. You think that did anything to help relationships between John C. Calhoun and Andrew Jackson during that first term? You think John C. Calhoun is going to be vice president during Jackson's second term? Spoiler alert, he gets reelected. Hell no. So, there's a lot of childishness there that can be attributed to inexperience. But again, all presidents make mistakes, right? Jackson's just kind of gone down as known for his more than some of the others throughout history, per se. Democracy. Great test question. Write this down if you're taking the time to watch my freaking videos. Andrew Jackson is the father of democracy in this country. Like, if I put on the test this coming week, who is the father of democracy? It's Andrew Jackson. He is the first Democratic president. He is one of the first candidates of the Democratic Party. He was the biggest pusher and proponent of spreading this new democratic way of life, socially, politically, and culturally. Andrew Jackson is the father of democracy in the United States. True story. Look it up. Google it if you don't watch my video, because it's going to be on the test. So, but Andrew Jackson's version of democracy in the 1828, moving into, 1830s, was very, very biased. It was very close-minded. Andrew Jackson, long story short's version of democracy held no room for women, African Americans, and Native Americans. And before the big issue that will cause impeachment to become a reality, there is one other little blip we need to talk about that he did. And I don't want to get my numbers here wrong, so let me pull up my notes. Here are my notes. Okay. I have so many numbers. Gotta get them all confused. Alright, so Andrew Jackson has, he's the father of democracy, no women, no African Americans, no Native Americans. I think it's safe to say on a specific level, obviously Andrew Jackson was in fact racist to a point. Very biased. You could call him a racist, for sure. Had people groups that he obviously lashed out against, and African Americans were one of them. He did not believe that freed African Americans should have the right to vote. Because if you're a free African American, if you're an American citizen, if you're African American, you should not vote. He didn't believe they were educated enough in politics to make an adequate decision. There are historians who claim that he was disbelieved that African Americans just weren't educated or were not smart enough to know how to make a right decision, which is a horrible way to, to think that, a horrible thing to think that he thought. Say that 5 times fast. But true. And, he just this very, really prejudiced individual when it came to, and very hardcore stubborn on his beliefs. Per se, here are my numbers. Per se. In New York, there were 30,000 freed African Americans, but by the late 1820s, only about 1% of those were being allowed to vote. People turning the other way and allowing them to cast a ballot. About little less than 300 of them were being allowed to vote. And Andrew Jackson is one of the biggest proponents and pushers out there of disallowing free African Americans the right to vote. Shouldn't have a vote, shouldn't have a voice, shouldn't have a say. So, but Jackson's pushings, and I do love this, blah, 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 because again, you can try and tear them down. Where is my slide? That's gonna drive me crazy. Anyway. Ruby. No art. So, however, long story short, with Jackson out there pushing and ensuring that they don't have the right to vote, or voice their political voice, politically, through voting, and God bless him, right? Every time people try to knock him down, somebody even find a way to get back up in this day and age. For you do have the first free African American community founded in the South, which again was New Orleans, right? So the African Americans in New Orleans decide, fine, they can't express their voice through voting, through the polls. There's not one damn thing Jackson can do to take away their First Amendment rights. The freedom of speech. The freedom of press. And it led to the creation of, Jackson's oppression of them led to the creation of the first ever African American newspaper called Freedom's Journal, published in New Orleans. To where, fine, they couldn't voice and express their beliefs and their opinions on politics through voting. They could write it down. So, they led to the creation of the first ever African American newspaper, Freedom's Journal, published from New Orleans, spread across the country so they could still get their voice out and their views out. Couldn't cast a vote, still said what they wanted to say. God bless them, right? And that's not good at all. I mean, his whole opinion and process on that is just not a good way of thinking whatsoever. Duh, no-brainer, right? But that's not what led to the impeachment clause. That's not what led to the impeachment process. Remember, his view of democracy did include women, which, unfortunately, that was universally accepted. African Americans, but also Native Americans, Indians. And it's a concept revolving around the Cherokee that'll start this whole thing off. But that is a lengthy story. And looking at we're about 50 minutes in or so. Guess what, guys? We're going to pause, ... there, and we're going to pick back up with Andrew Jackson and what he did to get the word impeachment brought into reality for the first time when I see you guys in just a little bit. Pause for now. Back soon.